Welcome to episode 3 of Squared Away. I'm your host, Bruno Silva, Vice President of Marketing at MC Squared, your go-to source for all things events, trade shows, experiential, and live marketing. For today's episode, we're going to take a peek under the hood to our company's creative engine while revisiting past and current projects, while diving also into the creative process throughout our creative and design capabilities. And to do so, I've invited two incredibly talented individuals leading the way within our National Design Network, Erin Sauro and Saul Stokes. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us, Bruno.
Yeah, how you doing, Bruno?
Saul coming straight from the West Coast.
Right.
Come on, let's go. So before we go ahead and kick it off and dive in, I want to allow you to introduce yourselves to the listeners. So starting with ladies first, Erin.
Great. I've been at MC Squared for about 8 years, and I started as a senior graphic designer. And now I run the graphics department with about 3 employees, and we're expanding.
Nice. Very cool.
Saul. And I'm Saul Stokes, National Design Director. I've been around for quite a while. We won't get into it, but in various different roles. But right now, just leading the entire design team nationally.
Sounds busy.
It can be, yeah. Different times, yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So I like to go ahead and peek into everybody's career journey. I think it paints the picture in terms of how they landed to where they are now. So let's kind of talk about how each of you dove into this creative design industry or focus, starting with Erin.
Sure. I went to school for communications design, which covers literally any form of print communication, from print to designing stores. So my first job out of school, I worked in New York City for a restaurant design company. We did large-scale signage. We designed restaurants. We did donor signage, so pretty much any physical thing that went on a wall was my first job. And then I thought, hey, branding looks fun. So I hopped over to another design studio where I worked on logos, collateral, anything small scale. So I've done large scale, small scale, and then this opportunity came up and I was like, hey, I think everything I've ever learned could come into this job.
Very cool. Saul?
Wow, the design journey.
They had computers back then, right?
Well, I remember a green screen, I got to tell you. So I'd probably go back. I mean, technically, I actually was outside of the design world, but with an artist kind of background in school. So I think I'm kind of a late bloomer to my career. So I think I was actually 27 when I finished college. Oof. So which is kind of late. But at the time, I was up in the Pacific Northwest, actually at Western Washington University, studying industrial design. And when I got out of college, when I graduated, my wife wanted to get her master's in textile design, believe it or not. So we came to Philadelphia, and I started looking for a job. And at the time, the market wasn't too good for industrial design. Like, it was really kind of complicated, not a lot of hiring going on. So I stumbled across a little display house in Jersey, actually in West Deptford. And once you're in, you kind of don't get out. So after that, it was just kind of elevating yourself. And you know, a lot of it is just kind of oriented around salespeople and whether they like your design work, right? So it comes down at the simple core of you're making something for someone to sell at the end of the day. And when you're good at that, you're just kind of requested a lot, and people are coming to you for stuff, and you kind of expand outward, and it just keeps going.
We always say you either have it or you don't.
Yeah, really. I mean, that's kind of what it's about. So it's actually has been an incredible, fun ride in that that request or people needing you or wanting to have you make something for them to sell. It's been really actually kind of wonderful, and it's always kind of inspiring and fun, and just kept going.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be wanted.
Yeah, exactly. I've never hated it at all. It's always been just a blast, actually.
That's awesome. That's very cool. Now, actually, stepping away a little bit from what you do on a day-to-day, I actually peeked in your Instagram and noticed that you do a lot of music as well on the side.
Yeah.
What's that all about? Come on.
Yeah, I usually don't cross those two too much. That's
you should start playing music for your RFP pitches.
But music I've been doing before I was a designer, so that goes back to teenage years, and actually, weirdly, the two complement each other very well. Ah, damn, sorry about that.
Is this your
Only
hot tub
one other
radio?
person so far that has happened once in episode 1, Chris Gilbert, and
That
now
is
episode
my-
3.
Don't we get a sound effect?
Which one do you want? Do you want the? Well done. I remember my first podcast, Saul.
I only have one of those a day. So, yeah, in terms of the music stuff, I don't usually cross-pollinate those too much. I consider the music pure art and design as career. So, yeah, but I've been doing music forever.
That's very cool. That's very awesome. Erin, how about your music?
Non-existent.
Me neither.
Please don't make me sing.
Don't worry. Okay, very cool. So we spoke about how you guys got here. Now, I think every time I speak to somebody in the industry, everybody always talks about the aha moment, like I made it. What was your moment, starting with Erin?
I mean, what makes you qualify making it, really? Everyone's different, right? Is it
It's a valid point.
salary? Is it a title? Is it I'm kind of a believer of, I don't know, you're always working towards something, so maybe there's never a made it point.
Okay.
But I think there's a point where you can be satisfied.
Always keep striving. I like it. So what was one project that you saw from start to finish, and you stood there and you go, oh crap, that was awesome.
I mean, I would have to say it would be a John Deere CES project, right? Because
Beautiful segue.
that was one that, we start in May or June, and we do everything from concepting what's going to happen at each experience, and then building it, and then doing the graphics, and then down to the minuscule things like where the light should be, what color the light should be, is it moving? It's a full scale project.
Yeah, and I don't know if you listened to the first episode. So the first episode of Squared Away, we actually did touch a little bit upon our award-winning footprint at CES, right? So the brand John Deere was brought up more than once. And that, to be honest with you, was one of the main drivers to really having you at this table, is because I think it was time to kind of give John Deere its flowers. So talk a little bit about your involvement with that project.
Well, I'm the creative director for it. So usually from the start, we'll meet and we start creating a theme, right? So there's what do we want to say?
That's the office elephant.
What do we want to say, right? Like, what is our theme? And this year and the year before, it was about how John Deere has real technology, so that we use that to base everything that we design off of.
Nice. And we had a part with not only just their show floor presence, but also their keynote, right?
Oh, yeah.
How did that go?
That was one of those, hey, Erin, do you think you could figure out how to direct a keynote, how to work on a keynote? And I'm a yes person, right? So you'll never find me turning anything down. And that was really interesting, too, because, I mean, really, it's just having a vision and then having someone just make that vision moving. So it really wasn't that challenging to kind of break outside of a normal flat 2D box.
Which I will say, and this is kudos to you and the team, I was there in the audience for the keynote in 2023, and that was awesome. So really well done in that. And, I mean, I will be biased, obviously, but...
She won't say no. But I get to see the texts.
Show the receipts, Saul. Show the receipts.
The behind the scenes, like, what was I thinking? What was I thinking?
The swear jar would be full.
That's the
No.
See, the best part is I kind of need to figure out a way, and I think I might put a Venmo QR code on that as
that's
well,
good, yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
tired of hearing I don't have cash on me. Oh, all right. Well, but going back to that question, so the aha moment for you, which project really allowed you to go, oh, wow.
Well, I think that's actually pretty interesting. I don't know if it was a project rather than a time frame. So, career-wise, as you're kind of going up in your career, you're getting better at design work or just being able to handle things. There's this moment where all of a sudden, it just feels like you kind of are in control of not only the way you work, but the way projects are getting done with other people working on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for everyone kind of still growing in their 20s or 30s, to me, that 45 age or 40 age, there's this kind of lights on. All of a sudden, you're not necessarily how do I say this right? People are coming, they begin to come to you for things naturally. So to me, my aha moment is when I'm all of a sudden dealing with people. Hey, Saul, do you think you can do this? Or how can I do this better? What would you do in this case?
The student becomes the teacher.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the aha moment for me. I would say if I had to specifically put it on a project, it would probably be a little younger in my career when I was working on, I used to develop quite a few of the Cisco systems briefing centers.
At MC Squared?
Yeah.
Oh,
So very young.
Way to plug.
Yeah. Good job. But there was this moment where all of a sudden all these architectural plans came in, and here's your idea in the middle of a huge amount of stack of plans. This kind of realization that something that just kind of popped out of your head is going to be built on a really large scale. That's pretty powerful. So, yeah. So I'm still having aha moments all the time.
I feel like that's part of our jobs as like designers.
Yeah.
You're constantly evolving to reach a new aha. Like,
Yeah, totally.
wow, I never thought I could do a keynote, but here we are.
Yeah,
Check.
it's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have to kind of see what everyone else does, right? That's what I always tell people. I welcome the competition to what we do on a daily basis because they provide us with the moment in terms of, wow, I should have thought of that. Or I like the way they kind of incorporated the entrance to this floor space or, the interactions throughout this pop-up activation and so forth. So I think that's kind of segueing into my next question to you guys is, I had the pleasure in walking CES with the both of you. And I know, Saul, you have brought your team over there, including Erin, several times to kind of just see what the trends are and what everyone else is doing. When you go into that, what mindset do you have to kind of portray or kind of put yourself into to really welcome other ideas of what someone else does? Because on the marketing side, I look at competition going, "Urgh." And I'll be honest, it closes my mind.
Yeah, but you have to. There's two aspects to this. There's one is the fresh aspect, which is you haven't seen the design process. Mm-hmm. It's very different when you've seen your design process. When it's a personal design process, the end result to me, it's always going to have problems internally. It's never going to quite look what you thought it was going to look like. That's right. Whether you're in music, whatever you're in. If you talk to any kind of artist. Lots of musicians will tell you the same thing. I hate my music at the end, right? I can't stand listening to what I made.
Actors who don't watch their movies.
Yeah, exactly. You see tons of actors never have seen their films.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's because you're so embedded in the process that the end result, it can only achieve so much in your brain. And that's coming back to always trying to do better. But I think there's another interesting thing that you touched on is earlier in the mid-2000s, the designers of this industry were more connected than they are today, I believe. So there's a lot more...
That's interesting.
It's more segmented. And a lot of that dealt with Exhibitor and Gravity Free, which were these events that would bring all the designers together, and we'd all watch seasoned people talk about their life experiences in the design world. Mm-hmm. And I would say if there's one thing that's really big that's missing right now, hint, Exhibitor, it's the Gravity Free. So I haven't felt that connection in a while, but there was a time where we'd get together and actually all talk together, and it's missing.
Which is crazy because now you have so many available resources to you,
absolutely.
Especially in this virtual world. Like, what would stop us from creating a virtual event next year, right? Where we kind of invite that design freedom to interact and network. Because I kind of get that. I see actually a lot more events out there where it's a sales or operation focus where everybody comes together. But the design element, you're right. I actually, stepping back, I don't recall the show.
Or we're going to find out that I just didn't know about something.
Yeah, or I. And then we're all screwed. And then this podcast is over.
But I think
that's kind of like an Adobe convention.
Yeah, I mean, they still happen, but this one was very
not
specific
for bringing people
to
together.
Exhibit design or environmental design world.
Very cool.
And maybe part of that is that we share differently now, that we see things on a daily basis through Instagram or TikTok
or people are scared of sharing
Absolutely,
too much, right?
yeah.
I mean, there's so many client names we can't say because we're scared of someone stealing an idea or something. So maybe it's also different because the information flows so
Totally.
much rapidly.
And kind of segueing now into that face-to-face job, part of our job, right? You two have been face-to-face with both industry partners and also clients and prospects when pitching those design renderings, right? And I think that's one of the toughest parts in what we do is we pour a lot of our emotions into the work that we produce. Now, with the design aspect of it, it's even tougher. Like you literally put hours into creating, like it's your baby. You grabbed ideas, you grabbed words, you grabbed keywords, objectives, initiatives, and you threw it into something that you hope the client likes. And maybe sometimes it's not as likable on the other end, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, put me in your shoes. How does that feel? Are you able to step away from it emotionally? How do you really present that design rendering?
You mind if I kick this off?
Please.
I mean, I could probably talk for a solid hour on this. One is there's a machine moving all the time, and sales folks, the ones that are continually looking for new client contacts, and there's new work happening. So there's this kind of train that's always moving. So when you lose something, quite often you're already 3 things out into another project. Okay. And there's this maybe a mentality that you get as you get seasoned in this industry that there is a million reasons why this project didn't come your way. And it doesn't work to sit and think about it too much, really. You put together what you can, knowing what you can, but there is so many missing ingredients when you're working on a project outside of a client's communal back and forth with you.
Which we don't always get.
We don't get. And do I feel like our team could make anything for anyone in any capacity? 100%. But if that relationship isn't there yet, on our side, we're just putting the best elements together in a time frame. And that time frame creates all kinds of challenges on the other side. I don't know if you're on the client side, you see the machine that has to build to create a little package that you see on your end and you go, I don't like it.
Don't forget about the budget aspect
Absolutely.
too.
All that has to be.
That's the big one.
Yeah, you can dream for the sky, but then it's like, oh, your LED
reels you in.
And you reel in, and then you find out that your competitor didn't reel in, and they won, and then they just work on the budget later. There's just a million reasons why you may win or may lose a project. So you can't think about it too much. It would, if you think about it constantly, you just curl up in a ball in a corner.
It's kind of the job that you take on. I mean, that's what a lot of schooling is just full critique to hopefully toughen you up so that you can take it. But it's also different professionally when you've poured your heart into it and it doesn't come over well. But again, that's our job, and you take it and you move on.
I have this thing that I'm trying to tell some of the younger designers, like the design process is chaos.
Yeah.
And it goes bad directions all the time. But those bad directions are actually the design process. So you can't, like when you think about the internal back and forth that we have, whether the design is right or all that, and things get backed up because the design has to go out on Friday and we're not sure about it. And there's all the complications that come with that. At the end of the day, that is the design process. So you can't get worked up about this. You can't let it affect you in any capacity. Now Erin and I are in the position that if we lose continually, we have to find another occupation. So at the end of the day,
hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. So
how about you, Erin? What are some of the challenges that you've kind of looked at within the design process?
Some of the challenges I found was not hearing directly from the client. So kind of getting secondhand information from someone who doesn't really speak design, asking for something like, oh, hey, they want a big graphic.
Okay.
And it's like, okay, well, what are we trying to market? What are we trying to say? Oh, I don't know. Just figure it out. Go on their website.
It sounds like you're having a conversation with me.
So that's usually one of the biggest challenges that I face, but usually make it work.
Yeah.
So sticking with you as a CD or a creative director, right? you've had to develop a good intuition for copy, strategy, and art direction. So when you do put those ideas on a solo basis and on a team lead basis, because now obviously over the last few years we've really equipped that team behind you, especially out of our Paramus office and Atlanta. Shout out Valerie. So what do you do in terms of being able to incorporate, keeping the idea fresh, keeping that creative muscle, those juices flowing on a day-to-day basis? What do you do there?
Well, I always encourage the team to never settle. Usually we go back and forth and send each other designs. And I'm always like, does that feel right? If you're not inspired, go look for something with similar keywords. Just always make sure that it feels good. And I know that's terrible because how do you quantify that to someone who doesn't work in design? But I feel like as a designer, you kind of know like if something's the wrong scale or something just is the wrong color. So usually it's like, go look for inspiration and let's make sure that we're actually meeting something that looks good and is what the client wants.
Yeah. And Saul, kicking that question over to you.
We have within the design team, we have a structure set up where we are all on the line for 3 external experiences a year. So the idea is that we actually have to kind of get out there and see a few things ourselves. Because to me, and it kind of goes back to what you said earlier about what's that moment when you walk on a trade show floor and you kind of go, you saw something that's really cool, right? If you don't have that experience, you wouldn't know that. And that's for the design team. I think you can get a year of experience going to a trade show, almost any trade show.
Right.
You can either see how bad it is
or any
how
event.
good it is, or any event.
Yeah.
It's really nice to have no pressure linked to it as well. Like if you didn't design anything there, it's so nice to just show up and walk around with fresh eyes. And
Is it, huh? No pressure at a show, huh?
Not have that panic of like, oh God, did I spell something wrong? Did the color print wrong? Or, is the wall where it belongs? But it's just so nice to go to an event and not have to kind of stress about making sure anyone's happy from what we did.
Yeah, and I think it's like window shopping, right? My wife is a buyer, and they do the same thing. Once a quarter, they go into New York City and then just walk up and down the window fronts, the storefronts, to see what, the latest, how the displays are, what the new trends are in fashion. And they kind of see what the buyer is looking for based on those storefront displays. And then she's able to go back and incorporate that in terms of like where her e-commerce stores and be able to see, hey, a lot of people are going really more for, the burgundy tops or something like that, right? I'm nowhere near fashion.
But then wouldn't the trend be too late if it's already in the
It
window?
is. That's the crazy part. They give you, like, for example, the color of the year, right? That comes out several months before that year. And fashion week, that always blows my mind how they'll show you what's going to be coming out in fall while it's summer of next year. So it is, you're right, but I'm not a fashion industry expert. But no, I think you always do have to see what everyone else is doing, right? Like on the marketing side, I follow the majority of our competitors just to be able to see how they're positioning themselves on a digital standpoint, how their social voice sounds. And then we kind of take it from there. You grab what you like, you try and incorporate it, you try and build on it, or you fall flat on your face when you try and do it yourself.
Yeah. I have a personal hate for lines and nodes to represent technology because every single company does it. So if I ever see a line and a node, I freak out. It's
been hanging on for a long time.
It's a hot button subject for me. So no one in my team is allowed to create anything with a line and a node because it drives me nuts.
And then you also kind of have to touch on a little bit what we spoke about in the last episode. Jasmine had mentioned the element of culture shock, right? Does that play into your world as well? And I mean, we have designer right in Switzerland as well. So do you kind of have to always incorporate what maybe is more relevant on the U.S. trade show as opposed to the European trade shows?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just an easy answer there. A lot of it can deal with how things can get built, the speed by which they can get built, the margins, all of that kind of comes into play. So for sure. But it's not to say you can't get inspired visually and then figure out how to maybe piggyback on something else and take it into kind of a new direction.
Yeah.
I feel like the Scandinavian look were those like wood slats, you know, and now they're everywhere.
They are, and they're still everywhere.
Oh, they are still everywhere.
And now they're in homes a lot. I've seen a lot of new developments
You
coming
would
up.
know.
I would know. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it myself.
I always have this thing as if you see it at McDonald's, it's probably done. And slats are in McDonald's these days, so it might be time to...
I mean, there's no disrespect to the fast food restaurants. They have amplified the way they look.
Yeah.
I still kind of miss my old school diner Wendy's environment with the yellow plastic cups and the chili and the baked potato, but that's just me. But yeah, I mean Taco Bell looks like a modern contemporary house now that I would see in the more richer areas of New Jersey, for example. And it's crazy. And I think that falls into wanting to also kind of stand out outside of the rest,
Sure.
right? So, but now we're talking about a lot of our successes, but we didn't go into our failures, kind of when we fall flat on our face. And me personally, I think you can take a lot of learnings from your failures. So let's go ahead and touch on that. What is one project that you think and let's not name the brands or the team members, we're not going to hurt feelings here, but what's one project when you had that Homer Simpson moment where you're like, dope, I really shouldn't have done it this way, or I really shouldn't have positioned this design to be facing this side, or et cetera?
I can't think of any like huge flat face moments.
Probably my biggest one, without naming anything, would be that I had designed a round room at one point in my career, and then proceeded to have a dream where I was sitting with an architect, a teacher that was telling me, you should never design a round room because of the acoustic problems.
Okay.
And then it was built, and sure enough, it had horrible acoustic problems and became a pretty big thing. So maybe that was my big...
I don't know. I'm a big like there's nothing that can't be saved person. So I don't know. Maybe something like seems worse to me, and then it's never that bad.
There is that. There's the idea that, and I mentioned this before, that when you get to the end of something, the process can be so grueling that your end result may not look like, and this goes back to the trade show. You come out and you see the competitors and you're like, oh my God, look at all this cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Well, I think on their side, the same thing happened. They're in the grueling process and probably like, oh gosh, I hope this looks as good as I thought it was going to, or it doesn't look as good as I thought it was going to do, or it doesn't quite solve the problems I thought it was going to solve. So there's this concept that things aren't as good as you think they or hope they are going to be in your head. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's, I don't.
It goes back to what we said before, right? Part of our job is we're never always going to win, right? There's always going to be something. I mean, I could go through 4 rounds of designs that I think look pretty great, and the client is just like, no thanks. Yeah. So it's kind of what goes with our job. So
pretty ruthless industry, actually.
Again, like if I was to hold on to a specific failure, it would probably keep me awake at night. So I'm sure there are times where I like put my heart into a whole design and they didn't want it, and on to the next.
Right.
I mean, realistically, what other, I'm sure there's quite a few, but you literally have to invent something and hand it to someone and say, do you like this? I hope it works for you.
On a consistent basis,
yeah.
Yeah, and that's and I say it all the time, right? I came from outside this industry in like 3 years ago this May, and I think that was one of the first elements of, holy crap, do we really do it this way? Where I noticed that we produce these incredible, beautiful design renderings for free, and literally put it in front of the client or the prospect and say, what do you think of this? And what stops them of just grabbing that and going to, the agency that they do choose and going, what do you think of incorporating some of these elements? That had to happen. Yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
Another layer too is that we haven't really talked about way too much is time. I mean, coming from a branding agency, right? I had a week where I could just sketch with a pencil an idea for a logo. And here it's like an entire design is 1 to 2 weeks.
Yeah. The design time is really cut down over the last few years. It's gotten very razor sharp. Mm-hmm. And then back to that, not only do you have to kind of design it, you have to price this invention, this one-off thing that you created. You now have to price it.
Yeah.
And all your T's have to be crossed. Everything has to be in line with certain criteria that's gotten more specific.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
I'm always amazed at how many guidelines per show you have to check before you actually design a wall. Heights and all the ramps and all that stuff.
And then you inevitably miss something that.
I mean, every show is different, right?
Yeah. And it's, that's the crazy part to me when, and what you guys do is you just really don't know what speed bumps are coming. And that's honestly terrifying for me. I don't know how it would be for you guys. But kind of touching on that part where, holy crap, your thoughts were stolen, right? And you walk at the show floor and you go, we went to bid on that client. That kind of looks like what I proposed. What goes through your mind through there? Like, do you think it's
not the first time?
No, you can't think about it too much. In fact, I mean, if I was being totally truthful, there are moments where I have seen a client say to us, we like this of another. I don't think I've ever seen another rendering and been asked to.
Well, don't say that. We have never done. We have never seen that.
I have. A client has certainly said, "Hey, take a look at this trade show. We want to do something kind of similar."
Sure, like a mood board.
Yeah, exactly. So, I don't think you can worry about it too much.
Right.
I've seen some pretty almost straight knockoffs of our designs before.
And do you just stand there staring at the team, going, "I know you."
Again.
All right.
Yeah.
You can't do it. We have to just be the ones. I mean, that's a compliment, right? It's flattering when somebody sees what you did, and then, I mean, yes, it sucks that they didn't choose us, but at least what you produced was enough. It connected enough with the prospect where they had to incorporate that aspect of your design, right? So
it's important to probably also understand from the client side. There's also moments where they're tied by certain criteria, right? And that could be a long-term relationship, and that's where you may get some kind of cross-pollination where they liked something they saw. But,
sure.
So I don't think it's all bad. That's probably just the way the design process kind of moves.
I feel like we sound very calm about it. I think it maybe comes with a lot of experience.
Maybe, yeah.
But I feel like we're like, we designed it. They didn't pick us. Oh, they didn't like it. Oh, well.
There is a lobotomy that comes with this business after a certain age.
I definitely used to get worked up if something didn't go well.
Yeah. So let's talk about another new little challenge that has kind of trickled into what you guys do, AI. Right. So now you have this.
Favorite.
Yeah. So now with artificial intelligence, I mean, every AI engine is out there now, like in any tool that we worked with, whether it's your internet browser, whether it's your phone, whether it's now Adobe, for example, everything has an AI engine that is sold to really facilitate what you do. And design is one of them. Now you can literally type something in and you have this rendering that's produced out of nowhere. I just came from a BPM spring conference out in Santa Clara, and one of the interactions that they had there with the audience was they broke everybody into teams and literally said, fill in the missing words of this sentence together as a team and be crazy about it. And within a minute of submitting that form, you have your design rendering right there in the middle of the stage for everybody to see. So it is very quick now to produce, and it's actually, for somebody who's not used to design like me, it's kind of like, oh, wow, I could actually do some renderings on my own. How do you incorporate them as a pros?
This meeting's over.
Go, Erin. He's kicking us out of our jobs.
How do you, it's kind of like power tools, right? They've never been there before, but when you put them in the hand of a carpenter, the new and the latest, he or she will be able to produce something newer and better.
I've had MC Squared team members ask me if AI can just make that image for me, which is beyond insulting. But I will say I personally have tried. So a lot of the stuff that we do is large scale printing, right? So I'm printing a 400-inch image. And I have actually went in and tried to AI an image larger or add width to it. and it looks great on your screen. But then when you go to make it 400 inches, you can clearly tell that it's made by AI.
Valid point.
So at least for graphics and large scale printing, it's really not successful yet. It's not crisp. It's not clean. It's blurry. It's not right. There's like a sock in the middle of something where it shouldn't be. But I had
finger.
yeah. Oh yeah, missing.
That's not normal.
So I haven't found it to be successful for something that's large scale printing. But if I need an image really quick and I need to throw something in it and it's just going on someone's screen at an inch or two, it's fine. But it doesn't translate to reality.
I would say, first off, it's mind blowing. A lot of the world that we're heading into is mind blowing. There are some tools that we've been using, and again, I don't think any of it is at Erin's, where Erin has to deal with large scale print. I don't think any of it has really worked itself out on that level. But for day-to-day tasks, there used to be this thing we called photo magic. It was where you spent 3 or 4 hours removing something from a Photoshop image that now is literally you put a marquee around it and say, I would like this removed, but I don't want this, and this removed.
And it looks great on your screen,
yeah,
right? But I can't
does that.
Stuff like that I can't use.
In terms of structural design, to me, I would say from most things that I've seen right now, I mean, there's people who really know how to do this. There's seasoned designers within this world now, prompt designers, and there will continue to be. That will get elevated and elevated. But there is a, what's the right word for it, where there seems to be a lot of copying that takes place from the results that we've seen. Meaning, to me, much of it looks like 5 images from Shutterstock have been overlaid over each other and then kind of photoshopped or photo manipulated.
Right.
So I don't think it's quite there yet, but will it affect our work and how we work in the next couple of years? 100%. And I don't think we fully understand the ramifications of that right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of like how I tell people, especially in marketing, right, or content creation. You have to learn to work with it as a new tool, not necessarily as a replacement for a specific person, right? For example, we had, with the incorporation of ChatGPT, right? It's very simple to go ahead and have this create an article within a few seconds. But what's missing in it? It's the human element, feeling that emotion or that persona behind those words on who actually created the copy. So I think it's reversing it where instead of just starting from scratch, you can use AI to at least get the engine started, and then it's up to you to put it in drive and go. Yeah. And really just kind of add your own aspect to it, your own attitude. That's the thing that's missing.
Well, the big part to that is in the future, or even right now, will the client care if the human aspect is in it? Mm-hmm. So in terms of a trade show design, if a client or if a marketing person is told, I don't even want you to work with a trade show company, let's just AI it, and then we'll give it to someone who builds it. We could see that very soon because as the machines fine-tune themselves for different industries, which is exactly what's happening right now, any and every industry is being fine-tuned.
Yeah.
It will get to the point where I think we'll see a lot more. The client will actually send us their inspiration. Mm-hmm. I've seen it a couple times already of AI boards.
Sure.
And then our job is to kind of turn that into reality. But again, I kind of go back to the thing. I don't think we quite understand how it's going to affect us now. So we can't. I mean, there's probably you could technically say, oh my gosh, should we just not hire anyone right now? Or should we hold off because of this? And I don't think any of that needs to be thought about. Like we just keep our engines going, and we all render with, let's take rendering for example. Coming at my age, I was on the tail end of hand drawn stuff that was still very much being
sketches
used to sell things. And as a young chap, I remember my 3D modeling work was got wows from some of the salespeople that were just used to sketches. Mm-hmm. And they're, oh my God, look, he's doing it on a computer. Oh my God. So it's the same thing, just continually happening. as we evolve and our tools change. Renderings used to take all night. Now they take 1 second. Or some of the machines within our system, they don't even take. They're just live. They're just finished live renderings as they're working.
Right.
So everything changes all the time, and our job is to stay atop of that. So we go back to the thought that you said here is we do have the Erin and I and the rest of our team have to stay on top of this. We have to watch it and see how it goes. And in some respects, we probably should be learning prompting within the team. And there's some of that kind of going on. And that is when I talked earlier about we have to do 3 things a year.
Sure.
Some of that is the results have been I want to learn to do AI stuff. Realistically, the best stuff you see comes from really good prompting. And that's not actually super easy to do. So the folks who really write the good stuff, those amazing images that you see, you're just kind of like, oh my God, those are pros. It's not like you and I, if I sit down and just say trade shows 20 by 20 and have a tower, I'll get a horrible result. So you have to kind of know what you're doing with those.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say, right? And it also comes with the familiarity of where that build is going to go. Like I would say 80% of the time, we know that trade show floor. We know that building. We know, that parking lot. So we know we can expect what at least the customer journey where it starts, right? AI doesn't. Yeah. Not yet, at least.
Yeah, so everything's got to have a yet in it right now.
Exactly.
So, it will be interesting. The next few years will be very interesting for us. Mm-hmm. Likely more interesting for Erin, especially working in the graphic world, as those tools begin to pump out vector finished things.
I almost welcome it a little bit.
I think Saul's saying you're screwed, Erin.
But there's another aspect is how many. So everyone wants to write with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. They all want to use it to write, but how many people want to read it? I don't know anyone who wants to sit down and read anything from ChatGPT. You want to write it.
Yep.
You don't want to read it.
Yep.
So it's the same with a lot of the visual imagery. You want to make video work using AI. It's amazing. I can now make my own videos. Does anyone want to watch it? That's the bigger problem. And maybe no one's actually ever stopped to really think about that too much. That the other side, no one really wants to look at this stuff. And a lot of the images you look at, they're kind of unnerving and not. It's not like I can't say I've seen. I'm probably throwing too much out there, but I can't say I've seen a AI generated image where I just stare at it because it's the most stunning thing. But I've stared at human made artwork all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a little of that involved too. Like, do we really want to eat what we're producing? We want to make it because it's fun and it's fast.
Sure.
Do we want to consume it?
Now, and that's kind of, we're talking about 2 different worlds, right? How your industry has really revolutionized over the last few years, and in the last decade has just kind of been amplified, right? Like somebody put jet fuel on it. But that element now is we're slowly transitioning where, a younger generation, it's what they're accustomed to coming out of college and the creative schools that they attend. Like, how do you go ahead and then look to incorporate those individuals with those mindsets and those habitual best practices into your team now?
Well, we have a young intern.
Yeah, a couple actually. There's the team's relatively on the newbie side for the most part. It's important to respect that because I would say on the same side, that age group is also on the marketing side. So they're starting to speak to each other. My brother and I talk about, there's this kind of point, I think there's this point where as you get older, like things make less and less sense. And then when you're 80, like nothing makes sense, just nothing, like everything everyone's doing, nothing. So you do have to stay involved and stay focused on this thing because it's actually a career for us. So
sure.
I'd say that these younger generations, they know how to do the same thing I can, but better and faster because they're using the tools that I just didn't know exist. So we're doing the same thing, but they're doing it in a faster way. So it's really important to actually have people who know how to, AI generate a hat with this graphic on it, because for me to Photoshop that hat, it could take 2 hours.
That's a great point. Going back to the rendering thing, there's one of the designers in our San Francisco office. Her machine's a little newer than mine, but it's...
Sounds like you have a bone to pick. What I see.
She has a second screen, and it's literally finished all the time. So as she's working, you can just see the rendering
come to life.
There's even no come to life. It's just there. It's finished. So to me, that's a huge jump. Like, this is a giant jump. So it's these continual things. Like you said, we have to kind of stay on top of that. We have to learn to prompt.
I want to learn too.
Yeah. Learn, don't die.
I was like, tell me how you did that.
Yeah.
It looks so good.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, and talking about talent that's looking into this industry, because let's face it, it's the event space is not known across the board. And that's one of the things that we learned when we did the internship program last year, where every single intern that walked into our doors was like, I had no idea that this was a thing. After we put them through the first week onboarding, right? Show them what the company was about, showing them what the event space of the industry was about. How do you look to incorporate, the new hottest talent that's out there and bring them in to really kind of put this space onto a plate in front of them and have them really dive in, as opposed to some of the other industries out there? What's your advice for those individuals looking to jump in?
I mean, I feel like it goes back to what we were saying before. Like, you can kind of tell by someone's portfolio if they have it and they can adapt, or if they're just missing a mark that I think we're looking for.
Right.
So it's so hard. I feel like a lot of our industry is like feeling, which is hard to quantify, right? Like,
it's very hard to quantify.
You can kind of look at a portfolio and just kind of see if they are going to be able to adapt. I mean, I didn't come from this industry either, so luckily I was able to jump in and make it work, and whoever hired me saw that. But it's hard. It's kind of like a feeling, and you have to kind of take a gamble if someone from what they are showing you on a website can adapt to grow to what we need them to do.
And you guys kind of just went full circle, right? I don't know if you've even noticed that. So at first, Saul, you had mentioned that the design time that you had, that window, was a lot longer than what it is now, right? It would be 2+ weeks, let's say, as an example.
Easy. Yeah.
But now with all these new tools that, the younger generation is accustomed with coming, out the get-go, is cut down to being able to produce these design renderings a lot quicker, which also now matches what that turnaround window looks like.
But just because you can produce a rendering quicker doesn't mean that you can creatively develop the concept for what it looks like quicker. So sure, we've cut down on the days that it takes to actually render the output, but you still need the same amount of time to think it up and make sure you're meeting all the requirements and kind of actually concept what it is.
And that's what I wanted to get out of that. Yep.
Yeah. Regarding how to hire or what the process is or how that works, to me, I've never felt that someone has to be in this industry. In fact,
spot on.
For the most part, I think most of them have come from other industries, or architecture, or even like fine arts, for example. So I'm very excited to personally train someone. That's really exciting to me.
Sure.
Teach them how to do things, how to work in the system, how to start modeling things. But Erin's probably better than I am at this. It's spotting who's the right person. We have this thing about us. I'm butter and she's the knife. So most people.
At least you're a butter knife then.
When I'm in contact with someone who's looking for a career or looking for a job, I just understanding where someone's coming from or not having a job or all that stuff's really big to me. Like the life that you're talking to, they have a life. And for some reason,
a lot of weight on personal.
Yeah, they're trying to change their situation or whatever, and it's like I'll say one of the craziest things is these days the way like resumes come in. You don't even actually see all of them. They go through systems, and you don't have a chance to or have the time to look through every one. So I always feel it's kind of disheartening a little bit that you can't always connect with everyone that's connecting with you or trying to connect with you, if that makes sense.
Sure.
But there is an interesting thing, which is you'll spot it immediately. If the resume is right and the person is right, it's immediate. It's like, okay, I can train this person, or I can train them, or they come with enough background to at least kickstart themselves. So.
And the ideation that they bring and the thoughts that they bring from something that's not the event space could also sometimes help us position ourselves outside of the circle.
Absolutely.
Kind of,
yeah.
right. And I think that aspect of it is what I remember when I got hired, right? Ben told me, I asked him during the interviewing process, I said, why did you look out at me? Because I'm nowhere in this space. And he told me straight up, he goes, maybe sometimes the thoughts that are already in this space aren't really what we need.
Yeah.
And we need something new and fresh. So yeah, that's a valid point.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we wrap this up, we're going to have a little fun. And I know I sent you guys the script, and if you looked at the last episode.
No, we didn't read it.
I know.
So, yeah.
But
this goes back to that 1 day turnaround thing. This was a 1 hour turnaround.
We need a week's notice.
all right, listen, I was flying from San Francisco yesterday. Okay, give me a break here.
Hey, I just flew in myself.
Yeah. Well, now I'm not going to feel bad about throwing this at you.
Throw it.
So this session is called Square Up. So it's kind of like a fireside chat where I'm going to throw you a keyword or a few words, and you have to tell me right out the gate, the first thoughts that come to your mind.
Before we do this,
Oh, no.
I feel like we need a square up sound effect. Maybe we can make like a little logo pop up too, like a square up, like like a little pop.
I'll get AI to do that, sure.
Perfect. Maybe like after you can like have Saul record some sounds for you.
There you go. Perfect.
I charge a lot.
It just needs like a
music stuff.
little, you know what I
I'm
mean?
non-billable.
It just needs like a little like love to it.
All right, done. I will get. Look at the creative muscle here. It's incredible. All right, so for that, then you're first.
Okay.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay. We're going quick with this. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Creativity.
Relentless.
Events industry.
Long hours.
2D.
Ooh, ever changing.
Live marketing.
Ooh.
Ah.
Oh man. I don't, live marketing, that's not really my wheelhouse. So
Come on.
live marketing. Fast paced.
John Deere.
I love John Deere. They're just like so cool to work with.
All right. New Jersey.
Lush.
MC squared.
Long lasting.
Good job.
Dang, good job. You're
Saul.
going to have to splice mine.
Yeah. We're going to clip
I
Saul.
don't know, live marketing's hard because I don't know much about, that in my day to
I
day.
am not going that fast. I can just tell you.
You stoked for this one? Let's go.
Well, technically I am on West Coast time, so it's 12.
Perfect. 3, 2, 1. San Francisco.
Super fun.
This when the dad tries to be cool.
Okay, where are our sound effects?
Design.
Exceptionally intriguing and long lasting.
Artist.
Working on something new all the time and continually inventing.
Teamwork.
The best part of this job.
Marketing.
Telling you, it's such a hard word.
I thought we were supposed to be a collaborative.
Not my job.
Sales.
I have a lot of respect.
Perfect. That's it, guys. So, give you some time, some space to go ahead and talk about what's ahead. So, what can we look forward out of your team? What are you guys working on that's hot?
Work-wise, we're looking to add another designer to the graphics team because everything's been coming in hot.
Okay, good.
So that's pretty exciting.
I don't know if we can actually mention
No brands.
Yeah, no brand.
Yeah.
brands.
You can talk about the shows or the potential event.
I would just say there's a lot of really fun things that are kind of moving away from traditional trade shows. A lot more activation type things that are pleasantly surprising and quite exciting.
Beautiful. Awesome. So with that, I want to go ahead and thank the listeners for joining today. And of course, I want to go and thank you two incredible folks, some of my favorites. So Erin, Saul, and on behalf of MC Squared, see you later, guys.
Thanks, Bruno.